In the Middle Ages, many Europeans thought that this was the shape of the world. This is the Hereford Map, one of over 1,000 Mappaemundi that exists. And it's quite possibly the best window we have into how people used to imagine the world. Long after explorers knew better, at a time when people were starting to chart the ocean, the average Christian still imagined that the Earth looked something like this. So why? If we turn it so north is up and overlay it with the modern country labels, you get a sense of just how off this map is. Italy's a little bulge over there, and Israel is most of the Middle East. Turkey's pretty good, but Russia and China, they're just tiny, tiny little things. There are so many areas that just feel stuffed in. But rather than trying to imagine this by today's standards, labeling all the countries, let me instead show you how they might have seen it back then. How they got to this point. It comes from a long line of Mappaemundi, which were medieval maps of the world. The first ones aren't the most interesting to look at. The TO map has east on the top and divides the world into Europe, Africa, and Asia. And that's about it. A version of this diagram was in the major encyclopedia of the medieval ages, and others built on it. Some emphasized Christianity, highlighting that Jerusalem was at the center of the world. Some were more illustrative, some more descriptive, and while many followed this TO pattern, others didn't. Over time, maps in Christian Europe started adding in more cities, rivers, animals, various legends, going far beyond this basic diagram. By the time of the Hereford map, Mappaemundi had gotten complex. But even though it was more complex than older Mappaemundi, it still wasn't incorporating most of what the Greeks had learned 1,300 years before. Part of that is they hadn't yet rediscovered some of those findings, but the other part is that Mappaemundi had a different goal. The Greeks were trying to get all the distances right, but the goal of the medieval maps wasn't to be accurate. It was to tell stories. The main story is that the Bible is right. And here's how it matches up with everything else. East is on top, as that's where they said Jesus would come from on the Day of Judgment. Jerusalem, of course, is at the center for similar Bible-related reasons. Here's where Jesus was crucified, the Tower of Babel, the Garden of Eden. Here's the path of the Israelites, them crossing the Red Sea, where they got lost in the desert, etc., etc., etc. And it lays all of that over the major known cities and rivers of the day. And then it goes a step further, also showing where stories from the classical world took place. The Golden Fleece, Mount Olympus, the city of pharaohs, Rome, Alexander's quest. It shows where different animals had been found, and where they believed the monsters and savages lived. Unicorns, blemmies, griffins, fauni. My favorite is the Bonnekin, whose fart kills hunters. But there are many, many others. In the corner, there's a guy saying, "Go beyond." And you can see that this map stretches beyond the Earth itself. At the top is a line heading towards heaven, and another towards the gates of hell. The stories from explorers, the Bible, from ancient civilizations, and from myths all rested in a soupy fog of muddled together truths. This map connected these ideas and brought tourists to the Hereford Cathedral, something to look at after they got bored of the Tomb of St. Thomas and the Chained Library, both of which are very cool as well. It was something between a map as we know it today and an illustration, a link between the ancient world and the modern world, between the mystic and the real. At a time when traveling between cities could be a life-altering affair, what purpose was there to know all of the world? So if they could take a story away with them, that was powerful. The map allowed them to latch knowledge together, sometimes correctly, sometimes incredibly ham-fisted. But for people whose entire worldview beyond this was strictly the Bible, it took them a long, long way into understanding what else was out there and just how big the world could be. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.